Well, it's 5:01, so I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Kingman City Council to order at 5:01 p.m. on Tuesday, January 19, 2021. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Miles. Vice Mayor Watkins.
Here.
Councilmember Mello. Here. Councilmember Nelson.
Here.
Councilmember Samley.
Here.
Councilmember Scott Staley. Oh, she is. Let me let her in really quick. She is here. Councilmember Walker.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The invocation this evening will be given by Pastor Griff Vautier of Kingman Presbyterian Church. Is he present?
He is not here yet this evening, Mayor.
Okay, then what I would ask is that we all have a moment of silence and for prayer and reflection, and in particular, hold in our thoughts the lives of all of those who have been impacted or lost with this pandemic. And so with reflection and prayer. Thank you. And now if you stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our nation's flag. Annie, do you have the flag picture? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council may go into executive session for legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431-A3 to discuss any agenda item. The following items may be discussed, considered, and decisions made relating thereto. And our first order of business tonight is an appointment to the Clean City Commission. And Commissioner Sarah Ferry is eligible to be reappointed to her second term on the Clean City Commission. Commissioner Ferry has expressed her interest in continuing to serve. Staff recommends reappointment of Sarah Ferry for a second term ending on December 31st, 2023. Annie, is Ms. Ferry there? Is Commissioner Ferry there, or has she sent a statement?
She is not present, Mayor, and she did not provide a statement.
Okay, then would the liaison to the Clean City Commission care to make a comment or a motion?
Since I am the new liaison, I'll go on ahead and do that today. So I would like to make a motion that we accept Sarah Ferry's application for continued time on Clean City Commission.
Thank you, Councilor Nelson. And is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We have a motion and a second to reappoint Sarah Ferry to the Clean City Commission. All in favor, aye.
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 Any opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner Ferry, for your interest in continuing to serve the city. And now we're going to move on to a recognition of Census 2020. And I understand that we have some representatives here to speak to us about the wonderful work. I know we've all seen the numbers, and that our city has done just a great job in getting the turnout for for the census, but now we're going to hear from someone, and I am going to ask, is Manager Fogg in there?
I am, Mayor. Thank you. I'll actually
Okay, then I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. So we are actually very happy to have Census Bureau with us. And if you want to take over, introduce yourselves, I should say. And we are excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to address each of you this evening and to any citizens who may be watching this live stream. We are so fortunate today to have with us to thank the City of Kingman, the Assistant Regional Director of the Denver region of the Census Bureau, Vicki McIntyre, with us today. You'll hear from her just a little bit later, but I'd like to go ahead and pull up the presentation for you so that all can see. Annie will come to my rescue if I can't figure this out. But while I am pulling this up, my name is Tammy Parisi. I'm a partnership specialist with the Census Bureau. I'm a previous partnership coordinator and oversaw the staff who was doing the partnership work here with the City of Kingman. The energy in this room when we talk about census is incredible, and we'll talk about how well the City of Kingman really did in the census as we get a little deeper here. But again, my name is Tammy, and along with me today is Vicki McIntyre. We'll skip this agenda because I just told you all about it, but we're going to start with a 2020 census recap from a national level. Our national self-response rate for the 2020 census, that means that households that did it on their own without us going to door was 67%. That's an incredible self-response to a decennial census. It was higher than our projection and even higher than that of 2010. So American households are paying attention and know the importance of accurate data. This was our first nationwide census online. Perhaps many of you watching or here in the room did your census online. That was the preferred method of response. At nearly 80% of American household addresses responding through that method. We are happy to say that there was no downtime, not 1 millisecond of downtime on our website where people could respond in the morning, the afternoon, the evening, middle of the night. It didn't matter. Our systems ran the entire time. And we also had no data breaches. The Census Bureau works very hard behind the scenes from decennial to decennial to make sure that we are ready for our data collection, and that's exactly what happened in the 2020 census. Average response time was 9 minutes. It took my household only 5 minutes, so it worked fast. And again, we did see that that was the preferred method. We don't take away options. We always allow for a mail and a phone method. Should the households choose that as well? Thank you. Yeah, getting some blotter off the screen here. All right. How am I doing? Okay. So households will still have the option to respond in other ways besides the internet. So what about those households who did not self-respond? We have an operation called non-response follow-up. You most likely hear the acronym being tossed around, NARFU, and we went door to door for 33% of U.S. households to make sure that we counted everyone once, only once, and in the right place. In 2020, despite COVID throwing us all a curveball, the Census Bureau stuck to its mission and enumerated 64 million addresses in a 68-day period, which was more addresses than what we did in 2010 in a longer time frame. So again, the Bureau was ready and we answered the call despite COVID. During every decennial, we also use proxy records, and what that means, if a household did not answer the door for us, despite multiple attempts, we still got the information we needed to count how many people resided in a household. So that's common, and that comprised 24.1% of the 33, and that matched about the 2010 proxy rate as well. And then we always use high-quality administrative data to do household enumeration when necessary as well. So that comprised 13.9%. As a federal agency, we operate very transparently. If you want to take a deeper dive into how the census was operated, we published multiple public releases on this topic, even showed the self-response rate map that we'll talk about here in a minute, and talk about how Kingman did. Always a question, well, what about those people who do not live in traditional type housing settings? We're talking about maybe incarcerated, those live in groups home, maybe people that are long-term residents of a hospital, nursing home, of things of that nature. This slide depicts that we counted them too, even if they were in a non-traditional setting. We include the homeless in that count, and those operations are called group quarters, targeted non-sheltered outdoor locations, and we work with service-based providers to help us make sure we count everyone, again, once, only once, and in the right place. The bar graph just indicates the difference from 2010 numbers to 2010, the number of facilities. So you can find some comfort that we did count everyone. So what did it take on the ground? It took a lot of work. Partnership specialists in the Denver-Dallas region, 12-state region, took about 300 plus partnership specialists. That included our tribal and media partnership specialists as well. We don't forget tribal, we don't forget media. It takes a lot of us to help market the census just like the city of Kingman did. We deployed nearly 50,000 enumerators to do the door-to-door work, and 50 area census offices. If you're curious what census office was tied to the city of Kingman, it ran out of Flagstaff, but we hired locally Kingman residents, Mojave County residents to help enumerate this area because they were familiar with the geography, and even the citizens in a small town such as Kingman knew who was going door to door, so they felt more comfortable. Again, COVID, we just adapted, just like cities, towns, counties did. We got PPE in the hands of our enumerators going door to door, and they were required to wear those. So we knew that the public safety was of utmost importance, as well to our employee safety. 67,000 plus partners, of which you were one of our gold partners. Again, that's why we have the honor of having Vicki with us here today. Kingman really brought it to the table, and we're so proud of you, and to include the Complete Count Committee. Oh, I hit the wrong button. Let's go the other way here. Y'all don't want to hear that slide again. And you may wonder where my accent is from, and that you probably don't think I'm here in Arizona. I have an Alabama accent that won't quit. But I do live in Arizona and haven't been in Alabama for 30 plus years. Where did the state of Arizona finish? 32nd. We're a border state. Still, 64.1% of households in Arizona chose to self-respond. That's incredible. Uh-oh, I'm doing something wrong here. There. Mojave County, what did it look like in its self-response? 59.7, which was a 3.7% increase from that of 2010. So I said the city of Kingman residents and households were paying attention, so was the county. They increased their self-response. Okay, here's what we really want to talk about. And again, we're so incredibly proud of the work that the city of Kingman did. Sylvia, we have been with her all day, and she has been in our communications via email, in person, and one of the energizers here in the city of Kingman, along with many of the city resources that Vicki will talk about in a moment. But look at the self-response for the city of Kingman. 74.5% of all households in our address file chose to self-respond. That is incredible. You are in the top 5 in the entire state of Arizona for any municipality. That is incredible. It's time to give yourself a round of applause for that. Look at the increase. I know that hard work and dedication that it takes to market the census when COVID is a competing priority at the same time to inform your residents, but you didn't quit, and I'm so proud to say, wow, this is incredible. So with that, you really want to know what's next in 2021 now that the year has started. And Vicki is a career census employee with I think I cut her a year short this morning at the county meeting, 35 years in the census. I learn so much from her every time she speaks. I know you too will learn something, and all that we have to offer now that the decennial is over. So with that, Vicki, thank you.
Mayor Miles and council, thank you so much for a few minutes of your time today to say thank you. You guys really did an incredible job. Things don't happen by themselves. Yes, we had a paid media campaign, commercials on TV, but it's the local community that really understands how important this is and gets their community members involved and engaged. That's what really makes it happen, and that's why our partnerships are so important. So what's next? The statutory deadline for apportionment came and went. We're trying to get the numbers, and because the funding and seats in Congress are so important based on the counts, we are still working on those files. In 2010, we finished the census in July. We had about 4.5 months to process the data. Because of COVID, we didn't finish till October. So 4.5 months to process the data, and we used internet and phone this time, which we've never done before. So there was new opportunities for people to double respond. We've had to do a lot of work to ensure we're not double counting and make sure that the data is accurate. Our tentative in pencil date, you've seen float around NPR if you read, is March 6th. So we haven't put that in ink, but that is the latest status as far as the apportionment count numbers. Followed by the apportionment count, of course, is the redistricting data that comes out. Today we did start shipping the geography files to the state for them to start getting ready. When we delivered the redistricting data, that usually follows a couple months past the apportionment data. Maybe we can speed that up since the apportionment data has been delayed, but we're trying to get that information out as quickly as possible. We are doing the post-enumeration survey right now. That is like the redo of the census. When you hear there's over or under counts within a given state or a given ethnic group, where it's undercounted or overcounted, that comes from our post-enumeration survey, which we are doing currently right now, and we'll continue through about September of this year doing that work out in the field. So, and I want to talk about our ongoing monthly surveys. We do monthly surveys in and out. So a lot of people say, well, I did the census. Why is the Census Bureau still out here collecting data? I did mine already. Well, we do more than just the census every 10 years. Hence why I'm a career field employee with a job. I just don't work every, 9 years when we do the census. We do a lot of the other stuff. So let me talk about that. Whoops. Tammy, I did the same thing as you did here. Okay. So let's talk about the survey work we do throughout the year. This week, we're actually collecting the unemployment rate data. Bureau of Labor Statistics announces the first Friday of every month what the unemployment rates are. Well, the Census Bureau collects all of that data the week of the 19th of every single month. So we have people out in Mojave County right now, here in Kingman. People are in sample. Their housing unit is sampled, not them as a person. Their address they live at is in our sample. And we collect that information and ask people what they were doing most of last week, working or something else. If you're not even looking for work, you're not considered unemployed. So that's how we calculate and give that data to the Bureau of Labor Statistics for the unemployment rates. We used to have a long form of the census. If you all remember in 2000, some people got lucky and had 20 pages to fill out. Well, that got switched in 2005, and we started doing the American Community Survey. If you're a planner, you've probably used that data. It's the real rich picture that shows the income levels, house conditions, all that. That's done in every single county, every single month. And that replaced the long form, so we have more current and accurate data, more timely data than once every 10 years. We just had a big data release in December from the American Community Survey. We have the National Crime Victimization Survey we do every single month. It's the only unreported crime statistics in the U.S. that we do for labor or justice statistics. And then we do some survey work for CDC with the National Health Interview Survey. I wanted to mention that the top one last because this is something we stood up in May. The pulse survey, we did a house pulse survey and a business pulse survey. We started it in May. The data comes out very quickly, and it shows the effects to the economy and to people personally because of the pandemic. We just did our recent last release on that. We were doing 3 phases of that, but since the pandemic is still not over, and we're still having economic recovery issues, and it's not gone away, we probably will do a 4th one, but that is a hot product. I just saw it in the news. Washington Post, NPR was using the data this past week on the conditions in the U.S. due to the pandemic. So that's a really cool survey we have going on right now. All right. So one thing I want to mention, free give back from the Census Bureau, is our data products. One, they're massive. There's a lot of them. We have the business economics data, really cool business tool. If you're trying to start your own business, it's got a business builder tool. And all of that is free to the public. We have data dissemination specialists that do nothing more than train people in the weeds on how to create custom tables, apply for grants, using census data. So if anybody's ever interested in that product or learning how to do that, we do offer some free webinars online. We also have people that do customized work for organizations and people who really need to know how to use our data in order to help business, grants, like I said, all that kind of stuff. So that's free of charge. We hope people use that. We have a staff that does nothing but data training all the time. Regionally, we're going to be offering a Overview 101 to people who want to hear here's a little picture of what is on our website, what's available, kind of a teaser type thing, in case you're not really familiar at all with what we offer. And then we will be offering more in the weed data summits for people to come learn more. We are also going to pull Sylvia into a vision and a reflection and vision summit in the next few weeks because your city was so incredibly awesome. You had so many people engaged, Parks and Rec, I think the police departments, your planning departments, to get the word out. So the biggest thing we do when we ramp up for a survey or for a census is people want to help, they just don't know how. And with the question we get asked is, well, what worked last time? What really, in rural communities, areas like where Kingman is, what did you guys do that was so successful? What made this work so well? Because having the self-response rate you had just doesn't happen by itself. So what are some things that we can share with people who come down the road 7 years from now? Yeah, the 7 years when we usually start getting started. So I guess that's 6 years from now. We'll be looking to start this all up again. But what are the important things for cities and counties to know? So we're getting some of the best together. Kingman is a gold. We ranked our partners. I hate to say that, but you do. You had we have our bronze people that maybe put a poster up in their, restaurant, and then you have your silver people that did a little bit more, but you guys are on the gold list because you did so much, and your results show from that. And why is this so important? Because self-response tends to give you more accurate data. When a federal worker is not knocking on your door, and you're a college student with a lease that says, I got 3 people who live here, and you have 7, like my son did, what are they going to say when the federal government's at their door? Oh, I'm going to tell you 3 because I'm afraid you're going to go to my landlord. That's the same with some of the tribal nations with housing. It says you can have 6 in that HUD home, and they got 12 or 15, but Census Bureau's knocking on my door, that's the federal government, I'm going to say 6. And then they wonder why the overcrowding never shows up. Well, you have to tell the truth, and self-response allows people to tell the truth. And this is the first census ever we allowed our tribal nations to actually self-respond versus having to give their information to somebody at the door. So it's going to be interesting to see when the data is released, changes or hopefully that more accurate information because the self-response rates were so good. I'm going to turn it back over to Tammy to present a final thank you for you all.
This is the fun part of our job, honestly. We wait for this moment after data collection ends. I said the energy is incredible here in Kingman. I have personally done 10 or more of these presentations. I've taken care of all of Mojave County, but I left Kingman for last because it's the best. Hope nobody from any other municipality in the county is listening, but really, Kingman brought it. There was some city challenges, and everyone was ready to take part in that. So we really are here to say thank you. From the chief of police to the mayor to everyone that worked on a complete count committee or waved the census flag or said, did you do your census? All of that really mattered. So I'm proud to be here with you tonight. We would like to present you with the certificate. This is our gold certificate for the city of Kingman. If it's appropriate, we would like to ask if the board is willing to come just down here for a photo, if you feel comfortable. If not, you can just stand, and we'll ask Vicki to come up here. Annie has agreed to take a picture. Sylvia, don't be shy. She really was our point of contact. Regular communication with her. She took us through the city of Kingman like the host that she is. We supported local today. Loved being in Kingman. Very proud to be here. So please accept this thank you on behalf of the Bureau. And Annie's going to take a picture. I don't really need to be in the picture. Vicki is, yes ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. We will be in touch with the city of Kingman for the Reflection Summit. That's already scheduled, but some of the data information sessions that really is going to give your planning department some more information. So thank you for allowing us to be here with you tonight. Thank you for putting us on the agenda. We will talk in the future, and Kingman, you really blew it out of the park. Thank you so much.
Ms. McIntyre, Ms. Breesy, thank you for the presentation. And we're really proud of everybody on the city too. I'd like to just mention that Manager Foggin gave such wonderful support from day one. And I think with Sylvia out in the community with our chamber director and the whole committee, they were at everything. Every time I went out, I saw them at meetings, at events. I was just so pleased. And so I'm appreciative for the self-response and for your presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, and one thing I wanted to mention was, I didn't hear you say, but if you sign up for the emails from the Census Bureau, you get emails about every day.
Yeah, you can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
We can hear you. You are freezing from time to time, but she's exactly
okay.
right.
Yeah, the emails have been I signed up when this started, and they just give so much information.
Thank you so much for that commitment, ma'am, and staying involved with the census data. We're excited to deliver the counts. I know everyone is eagerly awaiting those and getting ready to do what cities do best. So thank you again for allowing us to be here with you tonight.
Thank you. Now we'll have a call to the public, and this is a hybrid meeting, but those wishing to address the council should fill out forms in advance. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or reschedule it for reconsideration and decision at a later time. And comments from the public will be restricted to items not on the agenda, with the exception of those on the consent agenda. There will be no comments allowed that advertise for a particular person or group, and they are limited to 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, this is a hybrid meeting, so that we could have call-ins or written comments, or someone in person there could speak. So Madam Clerk, I would ask you, do we have someone in the chamber?
We
that
do
wishes to
not.
speak?
We do not have anybody signed up to speak this evening.
And no call-in or written comments?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. All matters listed here are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Do any of the council members wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I would like to remove item F. And so I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda A through G with the exception of F.
Mayor, I will move that we accept the consent agenda with A through G with the exception of F.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with the exception of F. All in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item F is a proposed resolution number 5332, which would approve the USGS Water Resource Investigations, IGA. And this intergovernmental agency agreement with Mojave County will allow us to partner with the USGS to facilitate the next phase of the Wallapai Basin Water Resource Investigation activities. And the reason I pulled this was because I think it's important to emphasize how this builds on the study that we all have just received from the USGS, and also how it ties to the proposed legislation that we are supporting to create a irrigation non-expansion area. And so, Manager Foggin, I wonder if you could speak to those items a little bit?
Sure.
Or have someone do that?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot, and if I miss it, I'm sure that Greg and Rob can add on. But really what this is our effort to continue to monitor the aquifer that has been being studied by the USGS now since 2017. And with the completion of their study, USGS, they've been a great partner along with Mojave County in being able to model our aquifer, the Wallapai aquifer and the Kingman subbasin aquifer. And in that effort, we want to make sure that we know exactly what's happening and what's going to continue to happen with our aquifer. So this agreement entered into will continue our joint partnership with Mojave County and USGS to set up monitoring stations around the aquifers, and it will actually allow us to have current, up-to-date, ongoing data on depth and quantity of water within our aquifers. And so at this point, we're looking for test sites for where this activity can happen. Monitoring wells are what they refer to. These monitoring wells will be spread out across the aquifers, both Wallapai and Kingman. And so we're pretty excited to be able to have this partnership continue, because a lot of work and a lot of money has gone into the report, and having the data stay current was really an effort that we thought was well worth our time, and having the USGS agree to want to continue to do it was really great, because we actually we have some expertise, but not clearly as much as they do. So that's really what this partnership will continue to do over the next few years. It'll also, with this relationship, will give us the ability to continue to model how the aquifers are doing. So USGS created a model, and they're going to, with this program, basically give us training both in Mojave County and Kingman in how to follow the modeling of the water depth, and we will be able to have that program where we'll have specialized people both in Mojave County and in Kingman to be able to run some water numbers and scenarios as we deal with additional agricultural expansion within our area, and perhaps for the benefit of Kingman, if we get large water users that wish to do kind of the manufacturing side of things, we'll be able to model those and see if they're a good fit for our aquifer or not. So that's really what this ongoing agreement is. Greg, did I miss anything? Rob?
No, sir. I think you covered it very well.
I agree.
Woo, got one right.
Thank you, Manager Foggin. And again, I'm going to just mention that the proposed legislation that will be considered most likely this session would revise the AD, I'm going to say it, ADWR, Arizona Department of Water Resources, to make decisions about IMAs based on projected on the projected use and the projected impact by this model rather than the current. And I think that capability to project the use is going to be debated in the legislature, and we'll see how that goes. But it's one that we have supported as a city. So this will really help us in that regard too. So thank you for that, Manager Foggin. And I make a motion to approve resolution number 5332 and approve the IGA. Is there a second?
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Then all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we have no old business and we have no new business. So we'll move into department reports, and I will turn it over to Manager Foggin for the pavement management report.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. Mayor, Council, we have really on an annual basis reported on our road pavement preservation process. As we get ready to kick off our 2022 budget process, we thought this was the perfect time in which to have this presentation. I know there's been a few questions about maintenance. So really, I'm going to turn the time over to Rob and Jack, and what our efforts for this presentation will be is to provide you some key information about the road infrastructure and maintenance of it, and also talk about some of those maintenance techniques and why we're doing the type of road maintenance that we are. And so with that, I'll turn the time over to Rob and Jack Plenty to go through their presentation.
Thank you, Manager Foggin. Jack Ponte, our Assistant Public Works Director, is prepared to go through kind of the annual pavement preservation presentation and maybe address some specific questions that have come up through the years. So with that, I will turn it over to Jack.
All right, good evening. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Give me a second here and see if I can get my screen sharing with you guys, and we'll get started down this road. Can you guys see my presentation okay?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you guys very much. So I guess first off, thank you guys for the introduction. And I'd like to make a couple of congratulations. We got some new faces and new names. I'd be interested or happy when we can all meet in one place again and see each other face to face. But for now, we'll manage through Zoom. So as Mr. Foggin indicated, we're going to talk a little bit about our pavement management program and what we're doing and some other items. I'll try to keep this as lively as I can. I hope I have the same energy that the census ladies have, but this is a bit of a dry subject, somewhat of a terrible joke, but I'm sure you'll get it as we move through this. So presentation goals, I want to talk a little bit about pavement basics. What is pavement preservation and what are we doing and what are the benefits? Where are we now? And what are the recommendations and the steps that we're taking moving into the future? We get started, I want to go over a couple of statistics for Kingman. So we have 434 lane miles. That's actually enough asphalt. We could pave a roadway 12 feet wide from Las Vegas, Nevada, all the way to Gallup, New Mexico. It's 4.4 million square yards, represents $258 million in paved public assets. And we've been spending about $864,000 a year on pavement preservation. Now, there's other things that we do that we have statistics in here. It doesn't account for any of the drainage, the 800 plus street lights, the 20 plus signals that we take care of, and some of the other ancillary stuff that we take care of is the street department. Couple terms. So a pavement management system. This is a process and a tool that we use to collect, analyze, and make decisions. Collect data, analyze that data, and then make decisions on our pavement preservation program. The program is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. That's where we're actually going out and we're taking that data we've collected and the results of analyzing that data and then using that to go out and actually make improvements and do preservation treatments. Pavement Condition Index. You'll hear me say this a lot, and I'm sorry I overuse it. I don't have a better term that I can use, but this is PCI is a rating of 0 to 100. So it's just like a report card. The further down you go closer to 0, the worse that your score is. So, you know, we really want to be at the bottom end. We'd like to be in the 70s, but really in reality, we'd like to be closer to 80 as an average, and we'll look at that as we go on as well. Deferred maintenance is a big one. So when we have maintenance that needs to be done and we don't have the funds to do that, we postpone that maintenance until a later date. And so that's deferred maintenance. We'll talk about deferred maintenance and how that's affecting us a little further as well. But I just wanted you guys to understand what that is as we move through. Pavement preservation, the basics of our asphalt. So there's really two components that make up asphalt. It's pretty basic. In the big picture, and one of those is aggregate or the rock. You know, it's graded to a specific gradation, and then we add binder. The binder is the expensive part. Just like gasoline, it's a petroleum product, and so that's where the expensive part comes into asphalt. That binder is expensive in the very beginning when we put down new asphalt, but that also is the expensive part of all of our preservation that we do moving forward. So the key, and you can watch the little slide there and watch our asphalt oxidize, but the key to preserving our asphalt is to try and stop the oxidation. We have oxidation, it causes the asphalt to slowly degrade over time, and that's when we start to see failing. And we'll see raveling. That's when the fine material starts coming off and you start seeing the bigger pieces of aggregate sticking out, and over time those start coming out. We've seen examples of that like on Andy Devine in the past. And then we also can have cracking, and there's different types of cracking. We don't have to go into that, but you guys have seen that. When we come in, we do crack seal. And the big part with the crack seal, actually what we're trying to stop is one of our enemies for pavement preservation, which is water. We typically don't have a lot of moisture here. We get it in monsoons and, you know, a few through the winter time. It's been really dry as of late, which is not great for us overall, but it's helped our asphalt preservation efforts only because it minimizes the amount of potholes we have. The other one we have plenty of, which is UV rays. Those two items are the primary causes of degradation to our asphalt. There's other things, you know, traffic loading and things that happen, but the two primary causes that cause the most damage is UV rays and moisture. So let's talk a little bit about what preventative maintenance is and when we do it. It's often difficult to convey to people why we're treating good roads. We really want to keep good condition asphalt in good condition. There's a number of reasons for that, and we'll talk about them a little bit further, but in short, the worse condition that the asphalt is, the more expensive it is to bring that asphalt back up to a good serviceable condition. So we're really trying to extend the service life of our asphalt at the lowest cost possible. And our highest focus, as I mentioned, should be keeping good roads in good condition. That's where we're going to have the best value, so and the least amount of money spent to extend that service life. The problem that we're going to have, and you'll see in some of our graphics as we continue on, we're going to have to fight that battle from both sides. We got some roads that are in good condition, and we want to keep them in good condition. But we also have some roads that are in poor condition, a lot of roads. And so we're going to have to work from both sides so we can actually start improving our network. And I don't want this to sound doom and gloom. It's definitely a serious item. And if you guys have questions we're going through, obviously ask, but I'll get to some more slides here. Sorry, excuse me for that. So this right here is a good picture, and we were actually provided this example from Jim Shano. He works down in the valley, and I really like using this because it showcases the importance of pavement preservation and doing it early. So really you want to treat with preventative maintenance treatments early on. If you look at the slide on the right, you can see it's pretty dark, that the binders are still in good condition. If you remember that slide where we were at, where the asphalt went from a good dark color to a white oxidized and then ultimately cracked condition, that's what you're seeing here. The slide on the left is actually 4 years newer than the slide on the right. But the slide on the right had a surface treatment to it early on, and so it really maintained that condition of the binder. And that's evident by the dark color. You don't see the oxidation. That surface treatment is actually the same surface treatment we use downtown. And you can see that asphalt was installed actually prior to the one on the left. So it makes a big difference doing preventative maintenance. When you keep your asphalt from oxidizing, you keep the flexibility and everything, and you don't see those cracks. So this is a really good slide to show what that means as far as doing preventative maintenance to our asphalt and trying to maintain those binders. Another terrible joke, trying to keep some humor in it, but asphalt industry, we kind of have our own 50 shades of gray. The road on the left is actually pretty impressive when you look at the amount of patching they have there. That's not in Kingman. That was somewhere in Europe, but we do have some roads. The road on the right is one of those that the asphalt binder's in a not great condition. It's oxidized a lot. You can see that in the color. And so every time we have a rainstorm, this picture is actually all the potholes from a single event. So one rainstorm caused all those potholes. You can't see on the other side of the hill, but we've been back to this multiple times because every time we get moisture, we see more potholes in this area. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of pavement preservation. First and foremost, it's the mission statement for the Streets Division. We want to maintain our assets. That's what we do. Couple things that it helps as you're doing that. It maintains the credibility of the organization. People see where their tax dollars are going, their community's clean, well kept, and that makes us all look good. Makes our community look good, makes our organization look good, and when it's not going well, people notice. Kind of ties in with improves the appearance of the community. This one's kind of big. We did a project, and it was kind of interesting to see after we did a big pavement preservation project, the roads looked great. And so people actually started doing improvements around those. So it doesn't only improve your roads, but you oftentimes see as you improve one asset, whether it's homes or businesses or even within your own community as the organization, those improvements start happening around that preservation as well. Reduces complaints from residents. I'm sure you guys have all heard, I got potholes, my road's in terrible condition, it's cracked. That's what we're trying to get rid of. Us doing preservation work will hopefully solve you guys some of those problems, but really we want to keep our residents happy, and that just ties right back into maintaining our credibility. improves resource allocation. We'll talk about this a little bit when we go into another slide. If we're out doing reactive repairs like all those potholes you saw on a single road, that's one small section of 434 lane miles of roadway that we maintain. So you're spending a lot of time and effort trying to maintain those when you can't do preservation treatment. So if you've taken 50% of your networks in that condition, it becomes difficult to manage. And we have a lot of other assets and things that we'd like to maintain as well. Talking about money, the proactive approach is also gonna increase the life cycle, lower the cost, and it's gonna lower the cost of everyday maintenance that we're doing. So I mentioned before that we're trying to extend the life cycle of that asphalt as far as we can for as cheap as we can. And that takes preventative maintenance to make that happen. Excuse me, a little congested here. So as well as having a impact on our community as a whole, it really has a big impact on economic development and commercial activity and some of our commerce. Our arterials and collectors are the main drives through our city. And that's for, you know, trucks trying to get to businesses, for customers trying to get to businesses. It all works together. So it's really important that we try and maintain those assets. So this graph right here, this actually is a representation of the pavement life cycle. So I'll kind of go through this, and you're going to see red, yellow, and green a lot. I think when you close your eyes, those are the three colors that are going to show up. So if you're looking at the top, the green condition is really where we want our PCI to be. So again, that's where we're going to be in those 70, 80 range. It'd be great to tell you we want to be 100. It's the return on your investment's not great. So if we can get in that 80 range, it'd be awesome. So the white curve that you see going down to the bottom toward the right-hand side of the screen, sorry, I'm stumbling around all over, is a typical deterioration curve. And so the green that's on the top, that's what you would see when you're doing preventative maintenance treatments. The condition starts to drop a little bit, you do a good surface treatment, you do some crack seal, whatever that road needs, and you extend that life out. That deterioration curve starts over. And when you get down a little ways, you do it again. That doesn't mean that you'll never have to do any type of rehabilitation or reconstruction, but we may take an asphalt that if we did nothing with it in 10 to 15 years, it's in a non-serviceable condition, we can extend that out a long ways. We have asphalt on Stockton Hill that dates back to the 70s. So it's all about preventative maintenance. The black curves that you see down lower, those are what you're doing when you're doing rehabilitation. They're at a lot higher cost. They're no longer preventive maintenance, maybe a fog seal or some type of surface seal. Now we're getting into crack seals we're getting into chip seals and slurries and different higher cost treatments. Once the asphalt is oxidized, we can't reverse that. It's aged, it's oxidized. Now we're putting Band-Aids on the top of it and we're trying to hold it together. The problem you see is those treatments have a shorter life. So again, we really want to treat those roadways toward the higher end of the PCI, toward the higher condition rating. And what that does, that gives us a lower cost and it extends that life cycle longer than if we wait till we're doing rehabilitation. Another good reason, we said it gets more expensive as you go. We'll talk about this some more as we go as well. But for every dollar that we spend now keeping a road in good condition is going to save us $6 to $14 in the future. And I really think that number is pretty conservative, because if you look at some of the historic costs, and I'll talk about that a little bit later too, they're much higher than what you're seeing here. So just to put that in perspective, if we took $100,000 of pavement preservation and did that on Stockton Hill, fog seal, crack seals, things like that, we're going to save ourselves $600 to $1.4 million in the future. It is, and that's assuming you're doing, say, 100,000 square yards. It becomes very expensive very quick when you defer your maintenance. And that's when we're dropping out of those good condition categories that we can do preventative maintenance on, and now we're moving into rehabilitation and reconstruction. excuse me. So the other issue that it causes is we get into a reactive maintenance trap. We have an inadequate budget. What do? We don't do the work, we defer it. And then we deferred that work off, and now we already had a budget shortfall, and now that work is gonna cost more money. Well, we don't do it, and then it goes into premature failure. We have a road that we should have treated, we don't, it oxidizes, we start getting cracked, and now we're having to go out and we're making reactive repairs, temporary. We're doing potholes, and we go out and we pothole. We have a rainstorm, and then we go back out and we pothole again. So our rework is increasing. You know, that's not great for the public, that's not great for budget or anything else. And then what we run into, oops, sorry, I'm jumping the gun here. And then what we run into is we have a morale drop. And that's not only within our organization, that's the city as a whole. The guys, the crews, the ladies are going out and they're taking care of potholes and they're doing work, and they're going back and doing the same work over and over again. And the community's upset, or the people that live on that road are upset because we're back there all the time. We're in their way. There's potholes all the time. It's just bad for our community. Our service level falls. We're out trying to do reactive repairs, and we're not taking care of the preventative maintenance of all of our assets. And so we start seeing slips in other areas as well. The deferred cost increases. So the dollar we didn't spend today now costs us $6 later on. And that just leads us right back to the same problem. We had an inadequate budget, we didn't do the work, and now it costs us even more money for the money we don't have. So it's just kind of a trap. And once you're in it, it's hard to get out. In short, a strategy for pavement preservation could be said, the right treatment on the right road at the right time. And we don't want to put a treatment that's more than the road requires on it. We don't want to put a treatment that's less than the road requires on it. And we want to do it at the right time. We don't want to wait too long. We don't want to do it too early. So it's really the right treatment, the right road at the right time. That's the lowest level basic amount of pavement preservation that you should be doing, or the simplest way to put it instead. So where are we now? So this report's actually from October. I get those periodically. It says monthly, but I get them about every quarter from Street Saver. I can look at the information and see it any time, but I had a new one that actually came in this last week. I just didn't want to change the slide. Nothing on it's changed, it's just the date. So again, current miles, we got 435 lane miles is what we're reporting. Our current PCI is a 37. As we go on, you'll see that's not necessarily great. That PCI puts us in the 25th percentile of agencies that are similar to our size that are using Street Saver. As you can see, 41% of our network is in very poor condition versus only 24% that are in very good. So this is a map. The system we use, the pavement management program, will allow us to make a map based on the pavement condition. And so what you're seeing, you remember back earlier in my slides, red is bad. We got a lot of red. We got some green and there's some yellow in there. And so that just tells you the scope and the scale of what we're facing as far as our condition categories. Again, that's 434 miles, lane miles that we do. So when I was talking about having an emphasis on good roads and on bad roads, this is why we don't have enough good roads to just keep good and then, you know, let the bad roads kind of tail off. We're going to have to take a two-front approach. We're going to be making sure we take care of our good roads and not letting those fall out of those yellow and green categories into the red. And then we're going to have to start taking those reds and doing some rehabilitations and reconstructions to bring those back up into the yellows and greens. And it's going to take some pretty extensive budget, and we'll talk about that in a little while. So just again, where we are, this is our lane miles by remaining service life. So that's another category. When we're talking remaining service life, that is the time frame that we want to maintain, or we think we have left on a piece of asphalt, that it's in serviceable condition. That's the key component, serviceable condition. So it's not like when the clock runs out for remaining service life that it's no good, or that it just disappears rather. It just means that we may not be able to do a lower cost treatment, and it may be so far oxidized that the road actually has to be removed or some other type of treatment to bring it back into good condition. The big part of this is over 50% of our network have roads that have less than a 5-year service life remaining. So this really is a show of the amount of time that we have, and really how we need to take this head on and work at this quickly, because our network is just continually deteriorating. And the further it goes down into that lower PCI and lower service life, again, the more expensive it's going to be for us to bring them back into good conditions. So there's a lot going on in this slide, and I'll walk through it. So you can see in the background, you see that white typical deterioration curve, and you can see up at the top what you would hope for in your pavement preservation program, doing preventative treatments to try and extend your life cycle. So the blue line is actually our PCI, and that goes all the way back to 2002. And then the yellow line is our average spending each year. And so if you follow that blue line, this is a really good example. You can see how it really lines up with that deterioration curve. It drops off fairly slow, and then when it does start down, it deteriorates very quickly. And if you were to extend those out and we had more data points in the middle, you would see that same curve very similar to the white typical deterioration curve. So the yellow line is what we've been spending in preservation, as I mentioned. And what's interesting for this one, if you go back to about 2007, it looked like they realized that they didn't have adequate preservation spending to maintain their network. And so they did a small bump. Unfortunately, that was right before the recession. And so you can actually see that a year or two out reflected in the blue line as the PCI began to increase. And then from that point, the funding decreased almost to nothing. And then you can see that slow deterioration of our average network PCI. Then when you get to 2016, we had a couple of good years there. That's where we had done we had a good year, and then we did the TPT increase. And we had 2 good years out of that as well. They weren't sufficient to where we really need to be, and I'll show you that as we go along, but it started to make an improvement in our network. And the one thing I want to say here is when it was making that improvement, what you'll see is a big increase early on, but a lot of our roads we're doing rehabilitation treatment, so that curve wants to curve back off pretty rapidly. And then at the peak, it drops off, and you can see the green line. That's actually where COVID came in. So we had the money that we're doing in this project slated for last year, and there was just some worries with the unknowns when we came into COVID early, what that was going to do to the HERF fund. And so we held on to the projects, and then we let them out this year just to make sure that we wouldn't have any issues in the fund balance. And so the end of that is actually the $1.2 million that we're spending this year on pavement preservation. See if I can go the right direction here. All right, Kingman's deferred maintenance. This is what I was talking about. So right now, we're actually sitting at just under that 65,000 million worth of, 65,000 million. Man, sorry guys, I'm bumbling around here. So we're just under $65 million worth of deferred maintenance. That's a significant number, obviously. That's a big budget number spread out even over a number of years. And that's just representative of when you've seen that decrease in funding and went almost to nothing, that's where you really start seeing the deferred maintenance come in. The blue line there is our PCI, and you can see I left it back to 2019 so you could see the correlation between what we were actually reporting for our deferred maintenance and how that's increasing as time goes on versus how our PCI is decreasing. So this is based on our current funding average. And if we keep running this, you can see our PCI is just on a steady decline, and we're actually dropping about 1 PCI point per year, but our deferred maintenance is going up significantly each year. with a constant lack of funding, this is what we're going to see moving on into the future. And as that PCI decreases, so does our remaining service life. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what it costs to do road maintenance. This slide has some comparisons of what costs were over the years. I got this from a presentation that WACOG locally had done, and I think it's really good and gives a little bit of a kind of highlights what we're seeing as far as what it costs to do the maintenance, and then also what deferred maintenance costs. Because again, if I can do a surface treatment for $1.50 and I don't in a number of years, that's going to cost us, maybe $9 or more. And so I actually went back through some of the records that engineering keeps, and I was looking at the cost for asphalt. And in 1998, I was actually pretty depressed by this. 3 inches of asphalt was less than $4 a square yard. So we work in square yard. That's a 3x3 piece of asphalt, and that was $4. Compare that to now, and this is typical across even Phoenix because we use a lot of their contracts. That same 3x3 piece of asphalt new is now $16 or more, depending on what it is. So our costs have increased significantly over the last 20 years. And that hurts because you're already in a budget shortfall, and now we're trying to make up for those increased costs. So this is a little bit of how we got here and talk pavement preservation spending. As we were looking through the PCI versus annual spending graph that we were looking at, you could kind of see the correlation for what we were spending, and you were still seeing the PCI deteriorate back, early 2000s. So this is the last roughly 20 years of funding that the street department has received to complete not only pavement preservation, but all the other services that are taken care of and the responsibilities they have, like signals and lights and drainage and things. So the yellow is the general fund. Actually, the general fund made up roughly 30% of the budget for a number of years. I didn't go past 2002, but as you can see, that tapered off, and then finally that was completely removed really after 2010. The orange, that's our HERF funding, so you can see that makes up the majority of our funding for streets. And then we used to get lottery and LTAF funding, and those have both gone away and never came back. And so if you go over toward the right, you can see that a restaurant and bar tax was started, and a portion of that goes to street funding or pavement preservation every year. And so that's the color, the purple color on the top of the graph there. And then those two red bars, that's actually when we had the TPT increase and what that made a difference in the percentage of our funding. A big part, we've talked a lot about different funding sources and things. We've all seen what can happen with HERF. It's very volatile. And so, we have a local problem and we probably need to look for a local fix. Not saying we're not going out and looking at a bigger picture. We've had members of our council go to the state and give presentations on what the funding and everything looks like. And hopefully Sylvia's success in the census here helps to bring us some more funds for our pavement preservation. It'd be interesting to see how that works out. But they're very volatile, so counting solely on HERF is putting all your eggs in one basket. So talk about our toolbox. You'll hear people in pavement preservation talking about their toolbox. That's just the types of treatments we use. And this industry moves very quickly. There are new treatments, it seems like, every day. The good thing is we have a lot of networking. We're able to reach out and talk to other agencies. You saw Jim Shano's name in one of those slides, and that's what that was. We had met with him and his team and talked about some of the preservation tools they're using, how they're working out. And so this is just a little bit of a breakdown on some of the treatments we use and what their costs are. And then the bigger part is you look, it says the years right there. That's the expected life extension for those surface treatments. When you're looking at fog seals and some of the surface treatments, the stuff like downtown, we're going to get 5, 6, 7 years out of those. And really those were in that $1.50 range. And that included all the crack seal plus all the work to put down the fog seal. When you move down into surface treatments, we start getting into chip seals and liquid road and slurries. Those are more robust treatments, and those become obviously more expensive. The high density mineral bond, that's actually treatment, that's actually the stuff that was downtown, but that one, we actually got that down again into the $1.50 range. And then rehabilitation, one of the key components when you get into rehabilitation is ADA upgrades. The Department of Justice, if you do what they call an alteration to your roadway, it triggers the need for the ADA to be to current standard. That's a big subject, and we won't get into that. That's a whole different topic. But when you get to a micro or do a cape seal, any of those items trigger the requirement for the ADA to be upgraded. So you've seen engineering has been steady working through downtown, specifically on Andy Devine, correcting a lot of those issues, and that's what that's for. They've taken our CDBG funds that we get, and we've used those to make those ADA improvements. One, that's great for the community because the mobility down there was pretty terrible. And then also that relieves some of the strain on the HERF fund to go out and do pavement preservation treatments. Now, we're not taking that money from the HERF fund to go do that. And these costs that you're seeing don't include any of the ADA improvements. And a lot of the other agencies are looking at 30 to 40% of the cost of their pavement preservation program is actually going toward those ADA improvements. So it's a pretty significant cost. Again, red, yellow, green, you can see where the deterioration curve lays in and kind of how those treatments fall on that deterioration curve. So let's talk about what we're doing moving into the future. I would love for Tina to just hand me a blank check, and trust me, I've been trying, but she won't do it. She's a good finance director. And just go out and hammer all our roads out and make our network increase, up to 70 overnight. And I'll show you what that'll look like in cost next. That's not going to work. So we went through a lot of different approaches. We did target approaches, which is what this is looking like. And we're saying in 10 years, we want to take and do a 10 PCI increase over that period. So those costs that you're seeing in that top of that graph are the annual cost to actually make that happen. And you're only seeing 1 PCI point increase. So this is actually across our network, and we did that for each of our functional classes. So our roads are broken into functional class, arterial, collector, and residential. Arterials are like Stockton Hill, a collector would be Western or Harrison, something like that, and then you got residentials or into the home areas. We're trying to increase our overall PCI, which you have to be careful of when you're doing these target approaches, is I can build a target and it'll look great. Our PCI is increasing, and when I look at the condition of our arterials 10 years out, they're all in failing condition. We weight our arterials, we weight our collectors, but the system is always looking for a good value. So we have to go in and we build these scenarios that we want, and we run them, and we'll run them for a 10 or a 20-year period and see what that looks like for the cost and our PCI. And we've done a lot of that. And so out of all those, the most achievable target that we have is this 10-year, 10-point increase. And I'll show you in this next slide why that is. So, going backwards, I think the census ladies got the computer running backwards. So this is an unrestrained to 70 PCI increase. Again, I'm waiting for Tina to let go of the checkbook, but as you can see, that's a $41 million cost in 1 year. That's not achievable for our budget. It's not achievable from a project standpoint. We'd have all of Kingman under construction. But the bigger part of this is when you're looking at $41 million, we've talked about trying to increase for 1 or 2 years. Oh, we'll give it another $3 million to the program. It's insignificant when you're looking at the overall cost. And what is also unique to this, so I only went to 70. So you still have roads that are falling out of good categories into some of the lower condition ratings. And so you're still seeing a little bit of a high cost for the treatments once we get to 70 on our PCI. But if you look toward the end, toward 2030, we're spending roughly $3 million a year Typically, you see 1 to 2% of your overall replacement value of your network is spent in preservation. So we got 258. You guys can break that down and see what 1% of that looks like. Again, it would bring us up to 70. The roads would be great, but until Tina can give me a blank check, then I'm kind of on the hook for that 10-year plan. So I'll talk through a couple little items here. This is our fiscal 2021 plan preservation. So this contract is actually out and has been underway. You guys have probably seen them around town doing crack seal. And we'll be coming back in the spring to do some surface treatments on multiple roads within here. The colors in this don't mean anything. They were for us as far as project planning as what the treatments are going to be. So again, you'll actually see these crews coming back probably April, May-ish when we start seeing some warmer weather. Talk through a couple items here. You're noticing that we are doing arterial collectors, all of our major roadways. That is our target right now. That's our approach. And mainly because those are our biggest roads. Again, they carry the most people. They carry our economic lifeline to all of our businesses. And they're also the most costly to repair and rehabilitate. So we want to make sure that those roads we try and keep in good condition. And so that's why all you see on here are arterial collectors. You don't see any residentials. We want to get into the residential neighborhoods, but as it is, we're struggling to maintain a good condition for our major roadways at our current funding level. Excuse me, let me get a drink. So I talked before about weighting our roads, you know, and where those fall in when the system is running for planned projects. We've weighted these arterials and collectors the heaviest, and that's why. If we were to turn and start weighting the residential areas, we can actually improve our PCI quicker. But again, like I mentioned, you'll see the PCI growing a lot quicker. But then when you look at all your arterial and collectors within 10 years, every one of them is in a failed condition. So that target didn't work out. The other item to talk about is we did have contract, and I've been asked a couple different times as far as, you know, why do we contract that out versus doing it in-house? And in the past, we actually used to do a lot of it, and I'd like to get back to some. Arterial collectors, I really, for the most part, I see that being the contractors, and that's really from a standpoint of resources. If you look at what's going on the crew, when they're out working, they got typically a 2-man team, which is a contractor doing their traffic control. And you'll see anywhere from 8 to 12 of them, depending on what process they're running while they're doing the crack seal specifically right now. That's actually our entire street crew. And so these guys come out and they put down I don't know, over 100,000 pounds of rubber, and it still took them over a month to complete that working, you know, 10, 12 hours a day for over a month. And so for us to shut down for that period of time is pretty difficult. And again, we'd like to get back to that maybe in the residential areas where it's not so labor heavy. We could have a smaller crew, a portion of their crew go out and do that work. And really that's due in part to a number of reasons. The first one is the scope of the work, our level of service, and the staffing needs that we need to just maintain those. You know, we have more city than we did before. It's been growing, so we end up with more roads. We have more drainage structures. We have more things that we have to maintain that require man hours. We also take on other work like the TIs. So ADOT had quit maintaining those, and we've started going in and mowing them and cleaning them and picking the trash, and we're out trimming trees and doing things on those. So that takes a lot of time as well. So to shut our crew down for a month to go do the crack seal, and then when we come back, when we're doing chip seal and things, the last chip seal we ran was, I think, 3 years ago, and it shut our whole crew down for about 2.5 weeks just doing the chip seal. So all those other items of work that we need to be doing are just not getting done. And we also have some capital items in there. So our chip box is pretty old. That doesn't necessarily bother us, but there's some efficiencies that are built into the new units. Ours is 16 feet wide, and it's 16 feet wide no matter what you do. And so that makes it a little more difficult when you're in the neighborhoods. And really where that comes down to is it takes 3 people just on our chip box. The newer ones, they accordion, they're actually able to spread the aggregate at a volumetric rate. So what that means is you have less rock on the road, less waste, versus ours, we have a lot of overlaps and things. And so it's not that we can't do it, but when you're looking at those efficiencies, those cost differences really come into play. And to update that one piece of equipment, you're talking probably $325,000, $370,000, depending on what options you get on it. So it's a significant cost. Now I get that is small compared to what we're going to need budget, what we've been talking about. But again, then you have the manpower that comes to that. And we've met with other people. We've talked to Mojave County about options. I actually see them doing some of their own work being subbed out. And I'm assuming that's just because they have more work than they got manpower for, but I haven't talked to their new operations supervisor. And then excuse me, we went down and talked to Bullhead. They were on a slurry program. One slurry truck's $500,000. And we started doing a cost benefit analysis for that. And there were some challenges in that. Another big one was manpower. They ran their programs mostly based off of inmates. They had a couple of full-time employees, and then they had a crew of inmates. And inmates have been a real problem as of late because of COVID. The DOC has not been letting any of the inmates out, so we've lost our inmate crews for going on a year now. So that's actually made a big impact on a lot of our operations. I know parks, streets, public works as a whole relied heavily on inmate labor, and we just don't have that anymore. No idea when it'll come back. Hopefully it does. It is a good program, but sorry, I'm jumping the gun again. But at this point, DOC has not given us any idea when that's coming back. So talk about the next steps. So the picture of the van that you're seeing up on the top left corner is an automated collection vehicle. And so when we did our initial inventory back in 2015, 2016, we actually went out and rated every section of asphalt, which we have 808 sections. And you do a representative sample, you take 100 feet and you rate the type of distress and the severity of each of those distresses. So you need to redo that every couple years. One, to see how your treatments are working as far as what their deterioration curves look like. You're going to inventory the new development you've had, which we've had not a significant amount, but a pretty decent amount. So that's going to change those statistics you're looking at as far as lane miles. And then when you have a management program, there's deterioration curves that are built into that, but they're adaptive. So every data point that we get is going to improve the output coming to us. It's already good. The program has great deterioration curves and typical things built in, but this program was developed in California. We're in Arizona. Our climate's different. We're hotter, we're drier. Maybe that works for our benefit, but we need to get a couple points. Really in your program, you want to have 3, really up to 5, or minimum 3, preferably 5 data points to help define and refine that curve. And so we're just due for an update, and this is typical. Some places do it every 3, some do it 5. We're going on the 5 schedule right now, and we'll see how that looks like, what that looks like. So the next step is funding. Again, the management tool is actually a resource that we use for budgeting and communicating to our leadership and also to our community. And so we're going to continue that. And Colleen and Mr. Foggin have been great. We've been working on some public outreach and trying to educate people on what the roadways are and why we do what we do and what it costs. And so this is where I give Colleen the plug. One, she's doing great and I appreciate it, but also this information can be found on our website. And there's a lot of great information. Some of the graphics she did when you're looking at arterial versus collector versus residential really send it home when you're looking at the volume of traffic. So that'll further support why we're approaching our arterial and collectors as the most important right now. And then the next step is going to be the rubber hitting the road. We really want to do some work, and we have some funding obviously, but it's not sufficient for what we really need to be doing. So as we continue our outreach and we secure other funding sources, then we'll actually be able to do more work. Those years where we had $3 million, we did a lot of work. We did a lot of big work. We wanted to get into the residential areas, but when the TPT was repealed, we ended up sticking that to the arterial collectors, which has made a difference in our deferred maintenance, but obviously not enough when 3/4 of our network is residential. So, and with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Plani. That is a quite informative presentation. Thank you. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Plani? Do any of the council members?
I either did really well or put everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen this presentation 5 times now, but every time I learn more, and it is a lot to absorb. It is a lot to absorb, but it's excellent. So thank you. And I think it's really good timing to have this presentation now as we are going into budget sessions and going to be discussing issues
Mayor, I'd like to say something
associated with payment preservation. So thank you.
Mayor, Councilor Staley has a question.
Councilor Staley? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Councilor Staley, yes.
Councilor Sandler.
Oh, Sandley, sorry.
Okay, Councilor Sandley.
Sorry.
Go ahead, please.
I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Planty. Going into the budget process for the first time, I learned a lot about roads and maintenance. I wrote a lot of information down, which I'm sure will generate more questions, but I really want to thank you for taking the time to explain that. Being a newbie on the council, I very much appreciate all the information that I received tonight, so thank you.
Great, thank you guys for having me.
I just want to echo, I had several questions, but I think he answered most of them. I just think we
pardon me, who is this speaking?
This is Keith Walker. We had, I had several questions he answered. It was a very good presentation.
Is that you, Councilor Watkins? Or...
Okay, yeah, this is Keith Walker. I had several questions, but Jack answered most of them, actually all of them. It was a very good presentation, and it looks to me like we just have a funding issue to get our roads back up. I thank you, Jack. It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Walker. And can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Let's move on to, given no more of the comments, let's move on to announcements by the mayor, council members, and city manager. Manager Foggin, would you please go ahead?
Yes, thank you. And to piggyback on to Jack's presentation, tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock, we have our annual budget kickoff meeting with the council. That will be a virtual meeting that starts at 4 o'clock. The Zoom has been posted and will be broadcast over our YouTube as we usually do with our meetings. The other thing that I wanted to provide as far as announcements, the mayor had mentioned at our last council meeting a request for an announcement, I think really on COVID. So I've got some quick statistics that I just want to share with the council on where we stand with COVID. Just as far as vaccinations, I think that's where our emphasis has been. We meet weekly with Mojave County to talk about the vaccination of our region, of our area. And just want to let everybody know that we have multiple locations, wonderful partners in our community that are providing vaccinations, and the 1A and 1B categories as far as population are being vaccinated with success. And so we're happy about that they've opened up the 1B category. 1B, of course, has to do with our emergency responders. So we have police officers, we have fire personnel who are getting vaccinated, getting the COVID vaccine. And we're hoping to get our other essential workers, public works folks vaccinated as well as vaccines are available. Right now, as of the latest numbers, there are 15,401 confirmed COVID cases. That puts us in Mojave County at 16.1% positivity rate. Our casualty or fatality rate is 3%. Average age of case is now at 47.7%. The number of cases in the Kingman region, 3,522. We've had 101 deaths in our region, and then as the average age of COVID deaths in Mojave County, 75.6. As of January 10, in Mojave County, 90% of our ICU beds are occupied, and staffing in our hospitals in Mojave County are struggling to keep up, and basically hospitals throughout our county have restricted any time off for their employees. So I know that's been a subject from time to time. And then finally, the last statistic is that the highest COVID age range, or those contracting the COVID, the highest is 31%, and that's 50 years to 69 years of age. And it's worth noting that we lost one of our newly appointed commissioners this last week to COVID, and that was Bill Barnes. And so it's hitting pretty close to home these days. So that's my announcements, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Foggin. I appreciate that information for the public, and I just would ask that people who want to go to the Mojave County website and click on the COVID bar that says COVID information, they have a list of vaccine providers, and you can get the contact information. And they also explain whether there are certain portions of 1B populations that are active and some that are pending. So that's all on their website. So let's move on to other members of the council. Councilmember Mello, do you have any announcements?
None tonight, Mayor.
Councilmember Nelson?
Nothing this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Samali?
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Scott Staley?
Yes, I just have a quick reminder for any downtown business owners or anybody that knows a downtown business owner. The Main Street Group is finalizing their map, their annual map of all the businesses at the end of this month. So we are asking businesses to check their emails. We need to verify their information. And then if they'd like a sponsorship spot, please let us know as soon as possible. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Walker?
Nothing tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Certainly. And finally, Vice Mayor?
Nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
I just have a couple. One, tomorrow is Tri-City Council for those that would like to join. This will be a Zoom meeting for the council members if you would like to contact the Madam Clerk. And then we'll have, as the Manager Fogg mentioned, we'll have a workshop tomorrow evening. And that's really all of my announcements, except I'd like to give a shout out to the Seroptimist, who invited me to be a speaker last week, and it was a pleasure to speak with them and give an update on all the city goals and activities. And I think they truly appreciated it, and I certainly appreciated the invitation. Okay, let's move on to council requests for future reports and updates. Are there any requests for future reports and updates?
Mayor, I have one, please.
Certainly. Go ahead, Councilmember Nelson.
I would like to take a glance at what our ordinances are in reference to living in the trailers, living in fifth wheels, living in RVs. I don't know if anyone else is noticing it, but if you drive through many residential areas right now, you can see an RV or a motorhome, an RV or a fifth wheel trailer with an extension cord running into the house. And I can appreciate that COVID has created some pretty rough times for people right now. So I'm not necessarily wanting to be someone who's going to throw the axe down, but on the other side of it, what I'm noticing is a lot of broken down cars are being parked next to some of those vehicles, and the moving into certain neighborhoods. It's just interesting what we're seeing, that dynamic, and I'd like to see or hear what the city can do, what we are doing, and what direction can our citizens go to kind of combat this a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Anyone else? I'm sure Manager Foggin will put that on a future report.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other request? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I move that we adjourn.
Your second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.